We'll go around the room and do introductions.
Justin Pluis, District 6. Correction, District 3. Sorry.
Jeff Benscover, District 4 Alderman.
Jake Catton, District 5.
Dennis Pollock, District 6.
Madeline Palmquist, District 8.
Matt Zacher, Mayor, I think.
Sue Schill, City Attorney.
All right, thank you all for coming. Item 2, discuss proposed revisions to Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code regarding the keeping of the honeybees. The proposed ordinance is in the packet, and we have on the phone with us James Hillemeyer, who is president of LB Works. He is a Wisconsin Rapids resident, and he'll speak a little bit more about his background, but there was information passed to you that was sent by James to provide a little bit of that and some information that he has regarding beekeeping inside city limits from past experience. James, can you hear us? James? Oh. James, can you hear us? He's in Texas right now, and there is bad storms, so he is been having trouble with power, and apparently half the county is out down there. So we'll see if James comes back. Sue, do you want to speak to the ordinance while he's?
Yeah, well, I just, it's the same ordinance as was contained in the annual ordinance, and I actually think this is Ms. Palmquist's ordinance, I think, from Oshkosh, is that right? I did not make any changes to it. I was not sure what changes, if any, you wanted. So that's the same ordinance that was part of the larger Chapter 25.
Thank you, Sue. James, can you hear us? Okay, so we were just talking about the ordinance that is in the packet. We're going to open up an opportunity for you to speak here on your experience with honeybee keeping, your background, and anything that you can contribute to us considering it here in the city.
The animals. If someone's got them in their backyard and they're actively managing them, there's not too many risk factors for the general public. Honeybees kind of tend to keep to themselves, close to their hives. You don't have too many issues with a honeybee flying out into the, general public causing too many issues in that respect, other than some of the things I've highlighted in that document. Honeybees are like other animals. They seek sources of water. So providing them a source of water close by to their hive and giving them that primary source of water will cut down any visits to neighbors or adjoining properties. And in the spring, bees naturally swarm. If they survive the winter, that's their way of reproduction. So a beekeeper usually intervenes in that time of the season to make their own splits and control that process, and that typically takes that swarm behavior away. Swarming is not really considered much of a public safety issue, but more of a public nuisance. Swarms can land somewhere where they're not supposed to be, or flying to somebody's open-faced wall or something like that, or a rundown building. But even then, swarms are able to be removed and relocated by someone who, usually there's beekeepers in the area that would come out and do that service. So I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to read the specific language of the Wisconsin Rapids ordinance because I haven't had internet the whole day down here. But I did kind of type that document up and, highlight, like Oshkosh would be a good example of a city. It seems like they have a pretty thorough plan that sort of addresses issues and how to weigh the public safety interest versus the private individual who wants to do beekeeping.
James is here today to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, James. My name is Maddie. Is there any specific property that you would say is probably not ideal to maintain or keep a bee colony within a city?
That's a good question. It's actually interesting. They've had mayors put hives on top of government buildings. They put hives on top of rooftops in the inner cities for projects of that type. Traditionally, if you have a high trafficked area, setting a hive next to something that someone's going to be walking in and out of, for example, an extreme case, you don't go set a hive, next to the Walmart entrance. There's a lot of people coming in and out of there every day. But if you were to take a hive and put it in a corner in the back lot that people don't drive in at Walmart, you probably not have any issues most of the time. Like I said, honeybees are, a domesticated species that we manage. For the most part, they keep to themselves. It's usually up for the person to kind of make that judgment. But in the case of inside the city limits, I would just suggest away from, high trafficked areas. But I mean, for example, the White House, they've had honeybees in the backyard for forever. They tend to them and they have visitors there every day. So it's really just more of a case-by-case judgment, and you kind of look and see what kind of traffic you got coming in and out,
And thank you. We don't have to worry like we do with other livestock animals. I know there was lots of discussion on chickens and how much space you need for the chickens, but bees we don't have to worry about like a half an acre lot. It's just a space that's not densely populated. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, so with honeybees, they fly up to 2 miles actively to forage for what they need, water or nectar or pollen. You could put them in 100 by 100 square in the back yard, and they'll fly out and find what they need in that regard. Mostly I've seen ordinances drawn up for limitations on lot sizing and things of that nature, just to be mindful of like the neighborhoods, for example, along the expressway, right, where you've got neighbors stacked up on each other very closely, and you've got neighbors that already have conflicts before they add anything to the mix, right? So I know some cities will specify a certain lot that you need, or they'll exempt certain areas just to be mindful of that. And once again, that kind of comes up to the city planners to sort of make those judgments on those issues. As a business, we actually put hives in people's backyard. I have hives in homeschoolers' backyard where people mow right up to the bees. They drive ATVs past the bees. And I'm talking like a commercial-sized yard, 60 to 100 plus hives back there, not what you would probably see in the city. So once again, usually those areas are more thought up about the city planners drafting the ordinances to kind of, reduce any conflicts they might have in neighborhoods where a neighbor wants to have a hive and the next 5 people don't really want to see them. Typically, bees out of sight, out of mind. Everyone loves to see honeybees in their gardens working the flowers and providing them free pollination in that respect. But they're less inclined to be happy if they see a bee hive,
Thank you.
So I'm glad we're talking about honeybees. At one point, I was doing my own research and thinking about having honeybees myself. So I think they would be beneficial to have in the city. My only concern is I'm worried that this ordinance on honeybees might be too restrictive, and maybe if somebody were to do the research and think about having honeybees, they might look at this and see some of the requirements that they need to have, such as establish and maintain a flyway barrier of at least 6 feet in height, and that may deter some people from having honeybees themselves. Would it be more beneficial to support those that want to have honeybees if we just changed Chapter 25 and eliminated bees from the animals that are not allowed?
Was that a question for me or for a general audience there?
It was a question. I mean, you could feel free to weigh in on that. It's also proposed to the committee as well.
So, as I stated in my letter, I'm actually a resident of Wisconsin Rapids. I live off of Drake Street. My whole family actually lives there. Our shop is based at Bancroft, and I went to high school in Lincoln High School. We're in the busiest time of our year right here. We just got done 3 weeks straight of 80-hour week. So I was just lucky to get the stuff sort of drafted up and over to you guys Sunday when I got a chance to sit down in the office. Typically, honeybees in the cities that they've been added to have really done nothing but promote and foster new relationships. You have communities that prop up. For example, high school ag teachers love to add that to the curriculum. 4-H groups. There's actually, in Wisconsin, almost every county in Wisconsin has a honeybee club, and we have a state organization. We're one of the oldest states with honeybee organization. Most cities that put those in, I haven't heard of any city withdrawing the right to have honeybees in there once it's in place. It seems to only add benefit to the areas that it's given to. It's like any other type of animal husbandry. You have to be half educated to start, right? I don't raise pigs or chickens, so if I went out there and just dove into it, there's going to be some learning lessons. So some cities have added to their ordinance that, hey, you have to, have some sort of background in this, whether it's joining a club or joining the state organization or this or that, or being educated to some effect before we'll write you the certificate or ordinance or whatever to have them. In my professional experience, beekeeping inside the city limits is certainly something that can happen without any public issues. Typically, like I said, once bees are added into something that people can enjoy and utilize in the city, I've never seen it revoked in the past.
I just want to clarify. I wasn't necessarily saying revoke the proposal to not allow honeybees. It was just to simply make a change to the current existing chapter that prohibits bees under, paragraph 1, section 2, so that there was no restrictions against maintaining honeybees.
Hey, Justin, I think we'll take that question up in a bit. Right now, I just want to leave it open to ask James questions while we have them, and then we'll move on to further discussion. Go ahead, Dennis.
Jim, my name is Dennis. I'm one of the city aldermen, but on an average, how many bees would be in a hive?
So bees are their hive strength varies by the season. For example, they start reaching peak population spring into summer, and then it falls down into fall and winter. They estimate there's something like 40,000 individual bees in a beehive. Now, beehives are kind of, it's a large number, but it separates into different classes of bees. You have what are called house bees. Those are young bees that typically stay at home and do the house chores. And then you have your bees that fly out and gather and all that sort of stuff. So the short answer is about 40,000 in comparison to like a bumblebee nest, for example. A bumblebee nest would have maybe a 400 to 500 bumblebees on a insects in a hive versus a honeybee hive. And then, like I said, as you get towards fall into winter, that's when the bees are pretty quiet. Bee biology is kind of like human biology. They get up in the morning, they go to work. They don't really fly when it's below 50s. They don't fly in the rain. They're back at home at night, type of thing. And for the most part, bees are kind of engineered to be out and working. So if it's a nice, full, sunny day, you're strolling along on the sidewalk and you see bees flying in the flowers, like, you're not going to have any issues unless, accidentally step on them or crush them or something like you would with any other insect. If you see bees away from their hive, they're typically happy to be out there. Basically, they're picking up their groceries that day, either the pollen or the nectar to take back to the hive.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I were to decide to start a hive tomorrow, how much would I need to invest in this adventure, roughly?
So beekeeping is like other hobbies. There's a pretty decent amount of startup costs. Right now, you'd probably be looking at $200 just for the physical hive. You'd probably be looking at another $100 plus to $200 in the physical equipment that they reside in. On top of that, you have your beekeeping apparel, your veil, your hive tool, your smoker. It can get into $1,000 pretty easily for a startup hive. You can do it a little cheaper, but you're looking at a $500 to $1,000 investment for a couple hives for someone who's in their backyard enthusiast. What's fascinating about beekeeping, though, is there's literal operations that started with a dad with 2 hives and grew it into a 10,000 colony operation over time. There's been businesses that have popped up because it's one of those animal husbandry things that people get excited about, and some people just take it and run with it. So in the city, most cities, I think, you're looking at 2 to 6 hives or something like that is generally what I've seen people have in their city lots or something. So, I mean, it can run a couple $1,000 for all the equipment, and just depends on how much you get into it and how much you want to expand it.
So, with that in mind, I can't imagine that there are people who are just picking up beehives and equipment at our local Tractor Supply like we can chickens. It's people who are educating themselves on how to maintain this investment and grow and benefit the community and their environment. You probably don't run into many
Yeah.
people who start and then give up right away, James.
So bees are kind of like what you said, chickens and cows and cattle and stuff like that. There's a lot of interest that people, they read it and get excited. For the most part, what you see is people either get in it and get out right away because they find out it's more work than what they really thought it was going to be. But mostly what we see is people who get into it now with social media and the internet and everything like that. Most people getting into that hobby or the pursuit of wanting to be an entrepreneur with it later are going into it with the understanding that there is work to be done. For example, our state association runs a mentorship program. We had like 7 mentors and 7 youth scholars is what we called them last year. So we paired a youth high school age individual up with someone who was advanced in their beekeeping career to mentor them. And the portion of our program was the kids had to put in a certain amount of work in order for them to own the hive after they got done doing it. And it was a great experience. For one, there is a large, not just beekeeping, but I'm sure you guys have been in other things. There's a large population of older folks ready to teach the younger generation some of these forgotten skills. And there's definitely the avenue for younger people to learn these things. That's just one example of the mentorship that happens. Most adults getting into it, should be fairly educated at this point. It's like any hobby that you would get into. If you're spending that type of money, you would hope that you've done some basic research to understand what you're getting into. But every once in a while you do run into the person that gets super excited, like you would. I've seen, it's like raising chickens. I've seen that explode in popularity over the years. You get people that sign up for it not really realizing what they're getting into, but they're usually pretty quick to fall out of that hobby and hang it up after they realize that it's more than it is work. There is work that comes along with that.
Thanks.
Any other questions for James? All right, James. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today and giving us that great information. Again, his name is James Hillmeyer. He's president of LB Works, and he's from here in town. So I wish you the best luck on your trip, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I'll just say in closing, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all. If you've got any follow-up questions, always feel free to shoot me an email or text. As part of my job as the volunteer work I do is to try to be an ambassador. In short, I wouldn't see any obstacles to having beekeeping in the city of Wisconsin Rapids if it doesn't exist. In fact, there's a few people who have actually reached out to me personally, knowing that I run a bee business, saying, hey, we've always wanted to kind of get into this in the city. Policemen, actually, I have two brother-in-laws that serve on the firefighter paramedic there, and they said that, there's professional folks of that nature who have always been interested in doing it. They just weren't able to have it in Wisconsin Rapids. I really don't pay attention much on what the ordinances and stuff like that is. I'm usually kind of busy, servicing the clients and stuff this time of year, and have my fill of beekeeping by the time I get home. So I did not know that whether or not bees were allowed in Wisconsin Rapids. But my opinion as a resident and my opinion professionally is I don't think there would be any obstacles to allowing it in the city. I don't see any public safety issues, especially considering that there's cities across Wisconsin that are much larger and more urbanized and more densely populated that allow beekeeping. So, like I said, I would just suggest looking at their program and their ordinances. That way you're not starting from scratch and just piggyback off of the work that they've already done.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your guys' time.
Thank you for your time. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
All right, I'll toss it back to you, Justin, with your question.
Sure. So just be clear, I'm all in favor of allowing honeybees to be maintained in the city limits. I just had some concerns that the proposed legislation may make it or it might deter some people from who are doing their research and looking at the honeybees just because of some of the restrictions, like I mentioned, the 6-foot high flyaway barrier, the size of the colony not to exceed 9 5/8 inch by 10 frames. Maybe they want to have more than 2 colonies. Maybe they don't want to keep their hives in a painted container. Those are all things that are mentioned in the proposed ordinance, where if we just change chapter 25 to strike bees, making bees formidable in the city, that might be more conducive to seeing more honeybees in the city.
I'll say that adjustments to the proposed ordinance, I would be in favor of if you propose them tonight, if there's a motion made. But I do think that there needs to be some type of ordinance around this, as we have ordinances with all other animals that are permitted. And it is because we do not want anything to get too out of control. So if we think it's restrictive, we can strike those tonight. Otherwise, I do think there needs to be an ordinance, and I don't think it serves as too much of a block on people wanting to keep honeybees. I don't think that's the intent. It's more to give guidance for those looking to do it in the city on what is reasonable. Because again, without an ordinance, you could have someone fill up their whole backyard. I mean, in here we talk about some empty lots and different places that they can and cannot be, which to me is pretty reasonable. But things like paint or the amount of colonies, I think we could be flexible on all that, or I would be.
Yeah, after speaking with James, I understand the need to be flexible, and I echo Justin's statements about not making it overly complicated. I do have recommended adjustments to the ordinance, but I'll wait until after we're done with all of our comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see it allowed in the city. I mean, obviously, but the ordinance that we discussed a month ago, there were certain areas where you could put these hives. You had to be so many feet away, and it looked to me like most people here in the city wouldn't have enough room to put them in anyway if we went with that. But I'd like to at least see this be given a chance and see where we go with it.
Ready for my slashing? All right. I would take out the entirety of the definitions, as the point is to streamline beekeeping in the city, and we wouldn't need to define what a colony is, what beekeeping equipment is, who the beekeeper is. I would like to keep that we have honeybees kept or maintained. As James said, he mentioned 2 to 6 colonies, so I would change up to 6 colonies. Within, how do we word that if we don't want to say, because we've got residential use, and he had mentioned quite a few commercial uses, even one that currently is zoned commercial. Up to 6 colonies per lot, and strike residential use, which then includes all rental properties, educational facilities, commercial properties, anybody who wants to embark on taking bees. As long as they don't have more than 6 colonies per their lot, we're safe.
So it says undeveloped property means any idle land that is not improved or in the actual process of being improved with residential, commercial, industrial, church, park, school, governmental facilities, or other structures or improvements intended for human occupancy and the grounds maintained in associations therewith. So my take on that was in undeveloped property or a property that is abandoned, for example, not putting a beehive or colony on those, but permittable in all the other areas. Am I reading? Residential, commercial, industrial, church, park, school, or governmental.
I think I see undeveloped, like abandoned property being different from undeveloped property, though. Where you have undeveloped property on James's FAQ is probably the safest place to put a beehive because they're 50 to 100 feet away from anything else. And if you have a beekeeper or somebody who's willing to invest easily $1,000 per hive, they're probably not putting their hive on a piece of property and then just leaving it alone, never going back to check it. Please interrupt me.
No, I'm just patiently, I'm waiting, I'm not meaning to interrupt, just. To Maddie's point, an underdeveloped property, the community garden would be considered one of those. And that would be an ideal spot for one of these, so. That's where I think we're running it, we could really limit ourselves. I can understand we maybe want to have some check so that somebody doesn't move a bee operation into a residential area and there's 30 hives swarming around, but I don't think that's realistic, and I think we can fix that with a simple, max of 6. But as far as where you can have it and stuff like that, I think some underdeveloped properties might be more ideal, kind of like what Alder Palmquist said.
So, do you want to continue your?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
slashing. All right, that leaves honeybees. We've got 6 colonies on any property, 6 per lot. That removes section C where honeybees are not allowed, as we're saying 6 per lot, including undeveloped property. In hive requirements, I would like to see that the hive will be provided with a convenient source of water, because that impacts where the bees go. And James had mentioned that they do need to have that source of water. I would also like to keep that we keep the hive more than 25 feet away from the property line. Everything else in that section can go. Sue looks like she's taking notes.
Who are you asked? Where did it come from originally? Or who was?
Yeah, where did it come from originally, and
I-
who would be making proposed changes?
I think it came from Maddie, and I can make the changes, or we both can figure out the
Thank you.
changes.
I agree, I started it, but I'm happy to pass it off to an attorney who does this on a daily basis.
Excellent.
So this could be any property anywhere could have this. Like, let's say there's an apartment complex. Like, any tenant could just go out and have a hive. Would they need the permission of anybody, or?
Yeah, I think that that's between the tenant and the landlord. Just like we say that properties can have up to 4 cats and 4 dogs and 4 bunnies, but it's the landlord's responsibility to have within their contract to that tenant if they're allowed to have animals and what the requirement is for those animals. We have landlords here. How do you feel about that? Right, but we don't have, if we had a requirement that anyone who's renting, we would first have to know all of the rental properties, and we would have to have some way to say, here's the documentation from the landlord, but we don't have anything that says they have to fill out a permit or get any approval from the city to have bees. So why would we have the requirement for them to get permission from their landlord and just keep it there? You have to get permission from your landlord to have a dog on your property if you're renting. We don't have that in our ordinance.
That would all depend on how a lease was written. So in the event that, I could see in the event that a landlord has a lease that doesn't address something such as honeybees, which can be more niche compared to cats and dogs, and would there be a conflict with that not being in the lease, but a city ordinance saying that they can have them? I mean, I don't know if that's really our issue. Maybe perhaps that's the landlord's issue, but that's the only thing I would see.
Nothing, it got removed. Because we don't have a permitting process for chickens anymore, so we don't have. If we had to fill out something with the city to say that I have these bees, then it would make sense to also provide proof from a landlord. But we don't have that.
I thought the chicken still said you had to get permission from the landlord, but it doesn't say, and that it has to be provided with the permit. It was just, the permit part was removed. But I can look at that.
I think looking for this to be guidance for residents as well. I don't think it could hurt to add permission from landlord in there, even though there's not a permit. That way, if you live in the city and you're in a rental and you're reading through this ordinance on all the things you have to follow, or, you know, how to position your colony, you would come across that and know, oh, I live in a rental, I should probably get permission from my landlord, which may not come to everybody's mind, but it can't hurt.
Okay. That goes back up to B, where we have rental tenants shall obtain written approval from a landlord. That should be changed to rental tenants shall obtain approval from a landlord prior to beekeeping. Is that sufficient? Excellent. That gets us back down to E, sanitation. I think making note so that we can enforce something if there is a problem with bees is good to have. So I would say that each beekeeper shall maintain equipment in good condition, period. And then I can be removed. Ooh, I lied. I like that one. Keep that. We don't want to store anything. We don't want to store anything that helps contribute to pest. So if somebody has, I don't know, a bunch of honey sitting in their garage and their garage door is open all the time and that brings in pests, then we want to be able to go to them and say, you need to move that. I would like for the first part of F to be confirmed with what we have in the chicken ordinance. I know we spent a good deal of time talking about when the city can go onto property, and I would like those to align. And then the other two portions of F can also stay. They're not restrictive, but note that you can't keep bees if you're restricted by your covenants, which aligns with the ordinance or the section getting permission from your landlord. That should make our bee ordinance less than 1 page.
I just wanted to, through your changes, did you keep C in? Or did you adjust it? Because one of the things James said is that high density, high traffic areas would not be ideal. So one of the things listed in there is mobile home parks and condominiums.
We can start with having those in there. I think that's similar to what we have for other domesticated livestock.
Right.
So keeping 1 and 3 under C in there and then taking out 2?
Correct?
So not to interrupt your note taking, but with proposed changes that may come out of here tonight, the ordinance would be ready for vote at Common Council.
I'm comfortable with that. Motion to approve recommended changes as documented by the city attorney. To Chapter 25 of the Municipal Code regarding the keeping of honeybees.
I'll second it. Got a motion by Palmquist, second by Catnaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-1. Item 3, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Motion by Palmquist, second by Catnaw to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 7:11 p.m.